Spartacus was just a great film. I don't really believe that Stanley Kubrick, felt it was one of his best films, and I think he sort of disavowed himself of it after the experience of shooting it. But I had talked, in my knowing of Stanley for 19 years, I had talked to Stanley a number of times about it. And I think what he liked the best, and I think what I like the best about that picture, are all the scenes between Charles Laughton and Peter Ustinov. I think that was a duel without swords, and that was about wit. It was about playing chess with a person who you're not sure is your best friend who could save your life, or someone who could condemn you to the cross. And I thought that was some of the most exciting moments in Spartacus were the one-on-one scenes between Laughton and Ustinov. They were delightful. But of course, you can't beat the fight between Kirk Douglas and Woody Strode, the first fight in the arena, where they're playing in front of Laurence Olivier and Nina Foch, and they're playing. They're not supposed to fight to the death, but they made an exception in this case, and that was a pretty amazing sequence of the sort of long pitchfork and the net against the short sword, and that was a brilliant scene. I think one of the most brilliant things that Kubrick did in that sequence was before they go out to fight, before Kirk Douglas goes out to fight, he is sitting right across from John Ireland, and they are staring at each other because they have become friends. They did something you're not supposed to do, which is to bond. Gladiators are not supposed to make friends with with each other, because you'll have to kill each other. You'll have to kill the other person. And there's a sequence in that movie where they're inside this wooden holding pen, and there's shadows coming through, the sunlight coming through the wood, and they're staring at each other, and you hear the entire fight that precedes their battle. You just hear the sound effects, and you just play it off the expressions of Douglas and Ireland looking at each other and wondering, oh my God, we're going to have to fight each other. And as that is happening, at one moment, there's a tremendous explosion of flesh hitting wood, and the two combatants slam into the pen, which is the one thing that takes them out of their thoughts about having to kill each other. That is maybe one of the most classic scenes in Spartacus.
The first time I saw 2001, I believe it was in Hollywood at the Pantages Theater. And I was a student at Cal State Long Beach. And I had gone in a car with my friends to see Strangelove, to see 2001, and we were stuck in line. We were stuck in the ticket line, and we got to the point where we got to the booth and the show had been sold out, so we had to buy tickets for the next show. So we basically waited in line for 3+ hours until the crowd let out and they cleaned up the theater, and then we got in there. So our anticipation, by the time we found our seats, was basically to the threshold of beyond. I mean, I was ready even before Stargate. I was Stargate at that point. I was so desperate to see that picture. And of course, I was desperate to see the picture because it was Stanley Kubrick, and a lot of my friends had seen it before me. And the entire campus was talking about talking about 2001. They were talking about the fact that it was a drug movie. Now, that was kind of strange for me because I never took any drugs. And so, never having experimented with anything, I didn't understand why they kept calling it a drug movie. And they were saying, well, the idea is you take drugs and then you go to the movie. And it just heightens the experience. The drugs that you've taken heighten the experience of the film. But I came out the other end of that picture, I know personally speaking, much higher than any of my friends who had taken mind-altering substances. I went in there, clean as a whistle, and I came out of there altered myself. That film was the drug. He took you into space for the first time. I mean, since 2001, no documentary, no other movie, no IMAX experience being on the shuttle and looking down at Earth has ever really put me in space as much as 2001 did. It made me fear it and made me want it so desperately. Want to be part of that great mystery. Want to be at the forefront of the pioneers that would discover, the monolith and Stargate and what lies beyond. So, I mean, my God, that was maybe, for me, his most realistic movie that he had ever made.
Clockwork Orange was, I think, the first punk rock movie ever made, and it was a very bleak vision of a dangerous future, where young people, teenagers, are free to roam the streets without any kind of parental, exception. And they break into homes and they assault and rape people, and it was that the subject matter was dangerous. But Kubrick had a kind of twinkle in his eye, especially the scene where you hear Gene Kelly singing in the rain, when he's basically kicking a man practically to death. And that was one of the most horrifying things I think I've ever witnessed. Just a counterpoint of the music and the song, and kicking him every time the music commanded it. And that was audacious and I think very dangerous in its time.
And when you put on Singing in the Rain during that sequence where he's kicking that person to death, it is utterly contemptuous. And it is almost like saying, why isn't somebody doing something about this? Where's the world when these acts of man against man are happening all over the world, every 30 seconds? Where's justice? Where's order? Why do we allow this chaos to happen? And of course, the great morality play that is Clockwork Orange is.
But when you look at the movie right now, unfortunately, history is caught up to the movie. And the headlines we now live with every day in our lives are not dissimilar to some of the subject matter of this 1960s film, Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange. Clockwork Orange is a depiction of grotesque violence, but it also has utter contempt for violence. That after all of this, deprogramming and a kind of proselytizing of the Malcolm McDowell character through science and theory, he comes out the other end more charming, more witty, and with such a devilish wink and blink at the audience that I am completely certain that when he gets out of that hospital, he's going to kill his mother and his father and his partners and his friends, and he's going to be worse than he was when he went in. And so in a sense, I've always felt that Clockwork Orange was Stanley's most defeatist movie. The film where he appears to totally give up on society. And the film that maybe justifies why he lives in St. Albans in the safety of the British countryside. Because he was afraid of that. When we first met, which was 1980, when he was just finishing the construction of his sets for The Shining, when it was all over and the movie was done, I saw Stanley again and went to his house for dinner in London and St. Albans. And he asked me he said, how did you like my movie? And I had only seen it once, and I didn't love Shining the first time I saw it. I have since seen Shining 25 times, one of my favorite pictures. Kubrick films tend to grow on you. You have to see them more than once. But the wild thing is, I defy you to name me one Kubrick film that you can turn off once you start it. It's impossible. He's got this fail-safe button or something. It's impossible to turn off a Kubrick film. But I didn't like it the first time I saw it. And I was telling him all the things I liked about it, and he saw right through me. And he said, well, Stephen, obviously you didn't like my picture very much. And I said, well, there's a lot of things I loved about it. He says, yeah, but there's a lot of things you didn't, probably more you didn't than you didn't, so tell me what you didn't like about it. And I said, well, the thing that I thought Jack Nicholson, who was a great actor, and I thought it was a great performance, but it was almost a great kabuki performance. It was almost like kabuki theater. He said, you mean you think Jack went over the top? And I said, yeah, I kind of did. And he said, okay, quickly, without thinking, who are your top favorite actors of all time? And I want you to think, just name off some names. So I quickly, went Spencer Tracy, Henry Fonda, Jimmy Stewart, Cary Grant, Clark Gable. He said, stop. He stopped me. He said, okay, where was James Cagney on that list? And I didn't have it. I thought, well, he's up there high. I said, but he's not in the top 5. He said, you don't consider James Cagney one of the 5 best actors around. You see, I do. This is why Jack Nicholson's performance is a great one.